Welcome to Food and Facilities, an online show for West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine. Our goal is to cultivate knowledge to feed the world by focusing our quarterly trade issues on safety, compliance, and innovation within manufacturing, agriculture, food processing, and food and beverage industries. This episode will be joined by Laura Timbrook, Wellbeing Strategist and host of Outspoken Nutrition and Manufacturing Wellness, to discuss wellness in the manufacturing workforce. Welcome to Food and Facilities with West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine. I'm your host, Tara Sweeney, and today I will be discussing wellness in the manufacturing workforce with well-being expert Laura Timbrook. Make sure to subscribe to West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine at wcismag.com/subscribe to reach all areas of agribusiness for safety and compliance in manufacturing, food and beverage, food processing, and agriculture. And if you're interested in advertising with us, like the associated advertisers that are on the show today, reach out at wcismag.com/subscribe. Our most recent issue for July to September is available on our website, and it is Planting to Processing. We asked and you voted. Our new name for West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine will be Planting to Processing with a 42.1% vote. Here are the new logo options that we are going to be having you vote on. Make sure to visit our social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to vote which one you like best. We have option A, B, C, D, and E. And one of our contributing advertisers is Safe Food Alliance. Make sure to reach out to them. They have an entire suite of food safety services that they can offer you. You can go to safefoodalliance.com or visit them at their Kingsburg location. Another one of our associated advertisers is Digital Menus. They offer custom digital portfolios and QR codes for your business to be able to promote both digitally and in person. Visit bit.ly/DM Fresno for more information. And now to bring on my guest, Laura Timbrook, to discuss well-being for the manufacturing workforce. Laura?
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's nice to meet you in person.
Yeah.
So let my viewers know a little bit more about you and what you do.
Sure. So I worked as a corporate health and wellness coach and speaker for the last 8 years. I have recently, this past year, earned my board certification in health and wellness coaching. And I really, about 18 months ago, made that transition into the manufacturing workforce. I really felt that there was an area that needed a little bit more attention, and the information that we were really sharing within our corporate environment didn't always fit the lifestyles and the shift work that was within the manufacturing industry, often leaving a lot of employees just feeling left out or that healthy just wasn't for them.
So what made you interested in nutrition in the first place?
So I actually got into nutrition totally kind of by accident. At the time, I was working in the corporate environment, and I was actually working in tech, and I was designing software in the life science industry. And I had 2 little kids, and they were both diagnosed asthmatic. And working with the doctors, I realized that there was a huge link between nutritional and environmental, and kind of just went down the rabbit hole on that. Started going back to school to learn more, really to kind of help my children. And I just fell in love with everything and how much food and our emotions and sleep really play a role in our overall health and well-being. So that's really kind of what got me down that nutrition rabbit hole. And I absolutely love, just looking at it as a very simple approach. I think oftentimes health and wellness becomes something that's so big and stressful, time consuming and expensive. And it really doesn't have to be. It could be something just simple.
So what had you branch into wellness and manufacturing specifically?
Yeah. So, like I said, I was working for about 8 years in corporate health and wellness, and every now and then they would send me to a manufacturing facility. And the funny part was they would never tell me it was a manufacturing facility. And I remember the first manufacturing facility I went to, it was their actual plant. And it was just really big equipment and trailers. And I had no idea. Here's me in my like skirt and high heels walking up trying to find it, and I ended up in the mechanics room and they had to tell me where to go, and I was trying to walk up with high heels off of those like graded steps. And the guy looks at me, he goes, when you come back tomorrow, he goes, please wear jeans and boots. And it was just a relaxed atmosphere and it was fun. And all the employees, it was one big family. I come from a big Italian family. So when I was seeing multiple generations working in the same facility and grandsons and grandfathers working side by side, I really was like, this is where I need to be. And then finding out so many of them just felt like healthy wasn't going to work for them. And I was like, no, we got to fix this. Healthy is for everybody.
So what are some abbreviated key takeaways that you would want to suggest to anybody in manufacturing or in the workforce in general?
Yeah. So, when we deal with manufacturing, the biggest things I was seeing that a lot of the workforce was missing was one, sleep. This became huge when I started talking with a lot of the employees. A lot of them, especially if they're working on third shift or swing shift work, they're getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep. Now, it's kind of crazy. There was a sleep deprivation study that was done that showed if you're getting 4 hours of sleep for 11 days, your performance level is that of somebody that hasn't slept for 48 hours. And that's really scary when we're dealing with safety, especially when we're handling large equipment and things like that. Not only you're putting your that employee at risk and yourself at risk, but the other employees that are around them. So it's really important that we kind of educate people on how important sleep is. And even for someone that's getting 6 hours of sleep, because a lot of times we recommend 6 to 8, 6 hours of sleep for 11 days is the same amount of performance level of someone that's just pulled an all-nighter. And we know we wouldn't let somebody on the manufacturing floor that has not slept in 24 hours, but yet we're just not realizing it. So really sleep education is huge. And two, when we're dealing with nutrition, especially amidst the COVID, those underlying health conditions are really playing a role in everything going on. And a recent study showed that 78% of our COVID patients had at least one underlying health condition, and 71% of that number had 2 underlying health conditions. And most of the most common health conditions are diabetes, cardiovascular, respiratory issues. And we know diabetes, we can really make a difference in someone's life if we work on food and nutrition and good, healthy habits. So it's really, educating. And I think I recently read a statistic that showed that 82% of our manufacturing workforce was obese. And that's huge because I know for the clients I've talked to, we always think of obese as eating too much. So many of the people I talk to, they were consistently missing and skipping meals. So lunchtime, that 30 minutes, they, by the time they get themselves clocked out, use the restroom, grab their lunch, go to heat it up, they really might only have 5 to 10 minutes to eat. A lot of them are throwing food away or just skipping lunch to have a cigarette break and a granola bar. And that's huge. So it's about educating them what quick, good nutrition could be. And, proper sleep. I recently wrote an article in LinkedIn on the 3 tips for sleep for shift workers. And it was pretty it was pretty amazing once you're realizing how little people actually sleep.
Yeah, it's very important to address the holistic issues that people are addressing, like not eating well, and then on top not getting enough sleep, and then that could be a risk for the workforce, and OSHA violations might go up if people aren't having enough rest and good enough food.
Yeah. And, when we talk about the main areas of health, we talk about sleep, nutrition, stress management, and fitness. And a lot of times, all of that stuff kind of magically falls into place once we get the foundation of sleep in. And it's just it really becomes an education, because I know every time I talk about sleep with people, they are shocked it makes that much of a difference in how sleep can really affect changes. And we've actually been finding a lot of people, it's almost like an 8 to 9 hour sleep that they really need to access at their key areas.
I know I don't necessarily get the 8 hours that we're supposed to get, and mine's not a safety required position. So to know how I function on low sleep, I can only imagine how it could be in an industrial situation.
Exactly. And especially when we're working with shift workers, that's where we're really seeing where they're not able to get that 8, especially a third shift worker. I mean, that means they're sleeping through noon. And a lot of times third shift workers have family life still going on. So they're getting 4 hours here, a nap here, and it really can drastically make a difference. But there's the good side of this is we can do things simply to fix it. And that's where kind of those educational seminars coming in and really working with simple solutions. I always tell people it's got to be simple, it has to be practical, and it has to be straightforward. Because if something's not simple, no one's going to keep it up. And not only are people not going to keep it up, it's going to cause more stress. And even if you had the perfect diet and the perfect sleep cycle, if you're stressed, you're still not going to be at your optimal healthy. We already know that stress affects everything. I have seen type 2 diabetics. They can't control their numbers, and it's because they're so stressed out. Their insulin levels that were working before suddenly aren't working. And a lot of times the missing link is stress. So it's really, it all kind of works together. It all works within that holistic approach. And it's so important to make sure we're kind of, checking off boxes and making sure we're getting the proper sleep. At the end of my podcast, I run a podcast called Outspoken Nutrition. And at the end of every podcast, we say a little line, don't forget to eat your effing veggies. And it was the whole slogan came out because a manufacturing facility, this one guy came up to me. He goes, what's one simple thing I can do to be healthier? And I just told him, I said, just eat your veggies, and he laughed. And every year I go back, and every year he tells me about different veggies he's eating. This year he told me he found kohlrabi. And he's like, I didn't even know what that thing was in the store. He's like, but I bought it. And he goes, it's delicious. So it's about just having fun, doing things simply. And when I work with clients, the biggest thing we try to do is put SMART goals in place, something that's achievable for someone. And then the second end of that is we really want to be autonomous. We want it to be natural. If we have to force something, it becomes stressful and we're not going to keep it up. So really kind of following those natural flows that we already naturally have, taking foods that people naturally will eat and kind of just making small little changes really makes a huge difference and doesn't add any stress.
In the Central Valley, we have tons of farms and fresh produce, which makes it really easy to access fresh, wholesome food. How would you suggest that more corporations and manufacturers incorporate healthier food options in their cafeterias. And
Yeah. So that is great looking at your local farms. I love my local farms. So if we can utilize local farms and local agriculture, that would be key. But what I tell a lot of my clients is when you're adding in these healthier meals, don't necessarily always take away what you're currently doing. And I'll give you a perfect example for meetings. A lot of times you go into meetings and there's donuts and coffee. And a lot of times when they put these healthier initiatives in place, they take out the donuts and they bring in yogurt and granola. Well, there's something to be said with having something sweet and something comforting when you're in a meeting that might not be the most exciting meeting. But if we still have some of the donuts, but then we offer the yogurt and fruit, you'll be amazed how many people will go for the healthier foods when they're given the choice. It's when the choice is taken away from them, we naturally want to kind of rebel against it. I call it the rebel culture, where, you tell somebody not to do something and they're going to do it. But if you give them the options of both, over time, we see people making changes. I had a woman one time at a plant and she was walking. It was the first time I was there and I was doing health coaching. And we were, creating these plans, and she walks in, she's got her Mountain Dew and she just came back from her cigarette break. And she's like, I'm only here because my boss told me I had to be here. And we started doing these regular health events. And each time I would notice she would listen a little bit more. Now we're about probably 2 years into regular health events. And the last time I saw her in January, before everything got locked down, she was down to 1 diet Mountain Dew a day. She came from 6 cans of Mountain Dew a day. She was down to 1 diet Mountain Dew a day. She was kickboxing 4 days a week, and she quit smoking. It didn't happen overnight, but like she said, little by little, she made little changes, and those are the changes that are going to last. She's probably not going back to her 6 cans of Mountain Dew a day.
True. Like, you don't want to necessarily completely redo everything, because the shock of changing that habit, it's going to be hard to keep up that habit of having healthier options instead of incrementally adding them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I talk with clients, I always like to give them the good, better, best option, right? So the good option is if you want to start slowly making changes, start making some changes in your vending machines, adding healthier options, maybe some almonds with some trail mix and, unsalted pretzels, things like that. And then maybe doing, weekly or monthly health newsletters, bringing in some kind of fitness and exercise routine. And, yearly health fairs are great, but kind of put something in place where you're starting to let your employees know, hey, we do care about your health and wellness. And then the better model is to implement that, but do more monthly events. And it could be something as simple as a monthly video from a health or wellness professional that they can watch. Or you can bring in a virtual health coach to do some group health coaching. And then we can have something like a leadership training that is really done for building that wellness culture. Once we start building a wellness culture within an organization, that's when we really start seeing the changes. And that's when employees, they feel valued and they're more likely to make those healthy changes. And then the best option would be to bring in what we call a CWO. It's a Chief Wellness Officer. And Forbes magazine actually I think it was 2 weeks ago, wrote an article on the rise of the Chief Wellness Officer. So I think moving forward, you're going to see, that C-suite executives expand to really bring in that Chief Wellness Officer, especially when we're trying to attract the younger generations. They value health and wellness. Actually, at their list, family is number 1, health and wellness is number 2, and purpose is number 3. So if we can start showing as organizations we care about your health and wellness, I think that's key in bringing in that younger generation, especially since we know within manufacturing, we really need that younger generation coming in.
Definitely. I'd been discussing with a bunch of other experts on how we need to address the skills gap and how to bring in more younger generations into the manufacturing and construction workforce. I know for me, a lot of the food places and options that are directed towards my age group are usually more focused on health and wellness options in their menus. Would you suggest that a corporation or a manufacturing plant incorporate more active time availability for their employees so they can maybe have like work out together or anything like that?
Absolutely. You know, this younger generation, they actually call the millennial generation wellness. And because they are really concerned, I mean, we've seen it with the CrossFits, with the Orange Theories. They want to be together working out. So I keep saying, I don't know if you guys had them on the West Coast, but where we are on the East Coast, we used to have walking, hiking trails that used to have fitness like platforms that you could like walk a balance beam or do 15 push-ups during the fitness trail. And I've seen over time that we've been adding a lot more fitness trails back into the corporate and manufacturing world, where they're starting to put trails around plants that they can walk, just get out and take a break. And if we can put those little exercise things back on, you know, 5 squats here, 10 push-ups here, just getting people moving, because and once we get moving, our mobility increases, and that's huge, especially with the lifting and, you know, just the moving around. We really need to keep up that mobility. So yeah, if we can add more ways of getting active. I know one of the things that the corporate area did that had some kind of mixed results were the Fitbits, and they would have challenges. One of the biggest problems is employees felt like it was being intrusive. Like you're kind of like overseeing how much I move. And, you know, but I think there was a better way we could have handled that. Now, one of the biggest things I know from being in the manufacturing is they like competition. You know, there was one time they had me bring in smoothies to kind of teach them how to make smoothies, especially since a lot of them didn't have much time to have lunch. And at first, nobody was taking the smoothie. There was no way they were going to drink that. Then we got a competition, and we started with like, you know, having a little competition around it. And suddenly everybody was drinking the smoothies. They were choosing which one they liked better. And it became fun. So we know competitions, especially in the manufacturing workforce, work. So let's utilize what we know works. And, you know, competitions are a great way. And it's also a great way to build camaraderie. You know, everything right now, everyone's very concerned on diversity and bringing that into play. And if we can kind of build that community that manufacturing really naturally has, that would be a great way of adding in competitions to get people moving and building teams.
It'd be interesting to see how different corporations and manufacturing plants implement their version of these types of things.
Oh, absolutely. Because every manufacturing facility I have been to is different. And, you know, I've done a lot from anything from a paper mill to food manufacturing to biotech. So where they're creating technology. So it's pretty cool to see how each of them are a little different. But yeah, it would be really cool to see how some of these things are implemented, because, you know, the creativity is so, you know, so broad at this point. You know, we're given we're given the opportunity to really take something and make it something amazing. So I think this is the perfect opportunity, especially with everything going on, that we could really help people become healthier, give them the right information they need so that they can live better lives and we can attract that younger workforce in.
What would you say are your top 5 favorite projects that you've worked on?
I think that paper mill would have to be my favorite. They were just a fun group of people. I love the changes that they've made. I also love working with leadership on building that wellness culture, you know, because a lot of times we think of wellness of just being the food, the nutrition, the sleep, but it's also, you know, highlighting where we do best. One of the things that we were working on is within shift work is identifying your morning birds and your night owls and making sure we're putting them in the right shifts and that they know that there's a difference. I know for me, I am definitely a morning bird. I can wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go full steam ahead doing whatever I have to do. But if you ask me to get online at like 6 at night, it's going to be a little rough. So identifying different characteristics that we're really good with and allowing leadership to kind of take that lead so that they can fill positions that are more natural. Because once we can fit into a position we really feel like we can thrive in, we're more likely to stay where we feel valued and, you know, that we feel like we do a good job and it's meant and it has that purpose factor.
Definitely.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the other interesting things is when we deal with that leadership culture, you know, a lot of times we don't focus on self-care. We're always worried about somebody else. And once we get into that leadership culture, we can start creating where that wellness really matters and getting that into place. So that's really key on making sure that, you know, we're taking care of ourselves. We're managing our stress levels. I thought corporate had high stress levels. Manufacturing far exceeded a lot of the stress I've seen in corporate, because not only do you have the emotional stress, you have the physical stress, and then a lot of times you also have financial stress. So if we can kind of control that stress, that's kind of key in building that up. And if we can have it come from the leadership down, we're more likely to take our time off. We're more likely to work on our work-life harmony. And that's really what we want to focus on.
Definitely. I know if you make it more accessible to the employee, they're more likely to have better work efficacy and commitment and more productivity.
Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons why I started adding in leadership wellness culture training, is because I have a passion for a manufacturing workforce. I have seen what they've done amongst COVID, making sure that our first responders are getting the PPE and changing over their manufacturing facilities and plants. I mean, we had manufacturing facilities out in PA completely change what they're doing. We had distilleries making hand sanitizer. So it's really important. And it's that workforce that I really care about. But if I don't address leadership, I'm really leaving that workforce out, because it's that trickle down effect.
What are some changes that you would suggest, especially during the time of COVID, for manufacturers and corporations to take into consideration?
You know, I think one, we can put some signs up on better food choices. I think having that, take this time and really put in that leadership training for that cultural, that wellness culture, that's key. Because while I can't come in and really speak to your employees right now, and let's face it, they're not getting on a Zoom call to hear me talk, but the leadership can. And I think we take this time now and implement that wellness culture and leadership training. That is key to helping our workforce down the line.
Definitely. do you have any common issues that you've seen a lot of manufacturers have to address?
Yeah, so the biggest ones are sleep and getting people to eat. I wouldn't have thought, if you would have asked me this a few years ago, I would have told you, that can't be it. The amount of people skipping meals, and then when they get home, they're not the best food choices because they're so hungry. And we got to get people really focused on eating lunch, and especially shift work, that our lunches, our breakfasts and dinners have to alter. We should really be having our breakfast, our smallest meal, right after our shift before bed, and it should be super light so it doesn't disturb sleep. And our biggest meal should be when we wake up before we're getting ready to work, so that we have the energy to do the tasks. So you really, food and nutrition, we really have to focus on it, and then, work with the sleep. But yeah, those sleep and nutrition, they kind of go back and forth on, who's top.
Definitely. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with Laura Timbrook of Outspoken Nutrition. Welcome back to Food and Facilities with West Coast Industrial Solutions Magazine. I am back again with my guest, Laura Timbrook of Outspoken Nutrition. And Laura, can you give us a little plug for your current podcast and the one that you're going to be starting soon?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I would go into corporations or even manufacturing, and we would do our events and our speeches, a lot of times questions would come up, and unfortunately I wasn't able to answer all the questions everybody had. But the most common thing is the questions were from facility to facility pretty consistent. So I started the Outspoken Nutrition podcast, which was really just answering questions people would ask. They are 5 to 10 minutes. They're not long podcasts, and it just follows the same advice. It's got to be simple, practical, and straightforward. And that's really how the Outspoken Nutrition podcast started. We just released our 71st episode on Friday. We release every Friday, and it's been a really great time. I've been shocked on the amount of people that have reached out to me, the amount of people that are actually listening and have questions. So it's really great to hear about it. And like I said, Outspoken Nutrition was really kind of born between corporate and manufacturing. And now that I'm really focused on the manufacturing, I want to give something to them that's specific for the manufacturing industry. And that's where manufacturing wellness is coming up. So manufacturing wellness will be making its debut end of August. And that's really highlighting the wellness initiatives that are going on within the manufacturing industry. I will be having a neurosurgeon come on to talk about sleep, which will be super exciting. I'll be bringing on a dietitian to be talking about family meals. And then we're going to be doing Outspoken Nutrition. We did an episode on blue light glasses. And the crazy thing with the blue light glasses, we actually found when I started the podcast, I thought they were a joke. I thought it was going to be one of those snake oil health things that make promises and don't deliver. And I found the exact opposite. And the craziest thing with these blue light glasses, they can really help our third shift workers. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the blue light glasses and how they can help our shift workers. So I'm really excited about this new podcast coming.
I look forward to learning by listening to your podcast, and I hope all of our viewers will give it a shot and give it a listen.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to contact you for assistance in improving the well-being of their workforce, how would they contact you?
Sure. So they can go right to lauratimbrook.com and they can email me. I think you're showing my little ad, and my phone number's on there. I'm on all social media platforms. And as someone just said before to me, they're like, all they have to do is Google you. Just Google me and you'll find me.
Well, Thank you for joining me today, Laura. I look forward to listening to your podcast and connecting with you again so you can share more information with our readership and our listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.
Our advertiser today is ResTech Industrial Services. They do industrial and commercial floors, walls, linings, and stairs. Make sure to reach out to their Fresno location at the contact information below, and have safety as the utmost importance for mobility in your facility or plant. Another one of our associated advertisers is Fine Print Plus. Make sure to reach out to them for social distancing floor decals. They have 11-inch diameter decals for smooth floors, such as concrete, tile, laminate, hardwood, and low-pile carpet tiles. Make sure to call them, email them, or reach out to fineprintplus.com/quote to get a quote on your floor decals. And our last advertiser of today is Valley Will Call. They're an industrial pickup and delivery service. They're part of the Darren Gibbs Industrial Services Company. They're serving the Central Valley. Make sure to email them at contact@valleywillcall.com or give them a call at 559-312-4544 or contact Darren Gibbs at 559-351-3280 or contact@darrengibbs.com.